On the fifth day, the guards came for Taiho alone. They led him through endless corridors of black stone and burning light. He walked calmly, hands clasped behind his back, looking around with the curiosity of a tourist. The guards expected fear. They got comments about the architecture. Very dramatic lighting, Taiho said. Who's your designer? The guards did not answer. They did not know how. The throne room was empty this time. No courtiers. No advisors. No audience. Just Emperor Kilos, sitting alone on his massive throne. His 6 red eyes fixed on the small human walking toward him. Taiho stopped at a respectful distance. He did not bow. He did not kneel. He simply stood, hands still clasped, and waited. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the Emperor leaned forward. Your species confuses me. We confuse ourselves sometimes, Taiho said. You have no warships. No empire, no weapons that could challenge even our smallest fleet. Your planet is small. Your technology is primitive. And yet you do not fear. Taiho considered this. Fear is expensive, he said. We can't afford it, explain. So Taiho did. He told the Emperor about Earth, a small blue planet circling an ordinary star. He told him about a species that had nearly destroyed itself. Many times, wars, plagues, disasters, humans had looked into darkness again and again. They had seen the end of everything. And every time, somehow, they had survived. We're not special, Taiho said. We're not the smartest or the strongest. We're just stubborn. When something tries to kill us, we get back up. When something tells us we can't do something, we try anyway. When everything is hopeless, we make jokes. He shrugged. It's not bravery. It's just what we do. The Emperor listened. His claws tapped against his throne. Your people walked on your moon, he said. I have read your history. We did. Your ships at that time were primitive. Simple metal tubes filled with fire. The chance of death was high, very high, and you still went. Taiho smiled. We really wanted to see the moon up close. The Emperor was silent again. In his long life, he had conquered species with technology beyond imagination. He had defeated empires that spanned galaxies. But none of them had done what humans did: risk everything for curiosity, for wonder, for the simple desire to see what was over the next hill. I will offer you something, the Emperor said. A wager. Taiho raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. The 3 trials? They are ancient tests. Challenges that have broken every species that attempted them. No one has ever completed all 3. The Emperor's eyes burned brighter. If your people survive them, you will earn the respect of the Empire. You will be free, and humanity will be protected. And if we fail? Earth burns. The words hung in the air. Taiho's smile did not fade. He stood there, a small human in front of a being who had destroyed worlds, and he did not look away. Why offer this? Taiho asked. You could just destroy us now. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. Because I am curious, he said. I have lived for 10,000 years. I have seen everything, done everything, conquered everything. And in all that time, no species has ever made me feel uncertain. His claws tightened on the throne. Your people laugh in the face of death. You sing in the darkness. You confuse my interrogators and befriend my guards. I want to understand why. Taiho nodded slowly. And if we pass the trials, you might learn something. Perhaps. What if you don't like what you learn? The Emperor had no answer for this. Taiho took a deep breath. He thought about Earth. He thought about everyone he was responsible for. He thought about his team, sitting in cold cells, singing songs to keep the darkness away. We accept, he said. The Emperor leaned back. You speak for your species? I speak for my team. And my team speaks for humanity. Taiho smiled again. Also, when we win in, you're buying dinner. The Emperor's eyes flickered. Was that amusement? Taiho couldn't tell. You are very confident for a creature so small. Your Majesty, I once convinced my mother that I didn't break her favorite vase when there were witnesses. Confidence is all I have. The Emperor stood. He was massive, towering over Taiho like a mountain over a pebble. He walked down the steps of his throne until he stood before the human, close enough to touch. The trials begin tomorrow, he said. Your team will face challenges that have driven beings to madness, to despair, to death. Many who entered those trials prayed for mercy before the end. Taiho looked up at him. He did not step back. We don't pray for mercy. We pray for coffee and a good night's sleep. Mercy is other people's problem. For just a moment, the Emperor's terrible face changed. It was small, just a twitch at the corner of his mouth, a slight shift in his burning eyes. But Taiho saw it. You are strange creatures, the Emperor said. You have no idea, Taiho replied. That night, Taiho returned to his cell. His team gathered at the walls, pressing close to hear his voice through the cracks. He told them everything. When he finished, there was a moment of silence. Then Sora spoke. So we have to pass 3 impossible trials or Earth gets destroyed? Yes, cool, I call dibs on the first one. Minho laughed. Doan sighed. Yuna started planning, and somewhere in the dark, Taiho smiled. Tomorrow, they would show the Empire what humans were made of. The cells beneath the Imperial Palace were cold and dark. They had been designed to crush hope. The walls were thick. The silence was heavy. Countless prisoners had broken here. Their minds crumbling under the weight of isolation and fear. The humans had been there. For 3 days, they were singing. Guard Captain Torek stood outside their cells. His forearms crossed, his face twisted in confusion. The song was strange, something about a place called Bizan and a sea he had never heard of. Their voices bounced off the stone walls, filling the darkness with warmth. This is wrong, Torek muttered to his partner. They should be crying, screaming, begging. Maybe they're broken already? His partner suggested, broken people don't harmonize. In the first cell, Sora finished the song and immediately started another one. She had learned that if she pressed her face against a specific crack in the wall, her voice carried to the other cells. So she sang. Old songs. New songs. Songs she made up on the spot. Songs about her grandmother's cooking. Songs about missing home. Songs about how the guards' uniforms looked uncomfortable. In the second cell, Taiho sat cross-legged on the cold floor. He had turned his detention into a meditation retreat. He breathed slowly, peacefully, as if he was sitting in a garden instead of a prison designed to destroy minds. When the guards brought food-grade paste that tasted like sadness, he thanked them politely and asked about their day. This confused them more than anything else. Minho had turned his cell into a laboratory. He had no equipment, no tools, nothing but his eyes and his mind. So he studied everything. The mold on the walls, the insects that crawled through cracks, the composition of the food. He filled his tablet with notes, creating a detailed analysis of the prison's ecosystem. The bacteria here are fascinating, he told a guard through the door. Based on the moisture levels and your respiratory patterns, I think you might have a digestive issue. Have you considered more fiber in your diet? The guard did not return to that cell. Doan spent his time exercising. Push-ups, sit-ups, strange movements he called yoga. When a guard opened his door to deliver food, Doan looked at him with genuine interest. Nice arms, Doan said. All 4 of them. Do you work out? What's your routine? The guard, who had never been complimented by a prisoner, did not know how to respond. He left the food and walked away quickly, feeling strangely pleased and deeply confused. But it was Yuna who truly broke the system. The Empire's greatest interrogator was called Melis. He was old and cruel and patient. He had shattered the minds of warriors, kings, and prophets. He could find the cracks in any soul and tear them wide open. He sat across from Yuna for 6 hours. At first, he tried fear. He described what would happen to Earth. He painted pictures of fire and death. Yuna listened quietly, her face calm. That sounds terrible, she said. Have you actually done that to other planets? Many times. That must be hard. Carrying all that weight. Melis paused. No one had ever responded like this. He tried again, pushing harder. He talked about pain, about loneliness, about the darkness that waited for all beings. Yuna nodded thoughtfully. "You seem tired," she said. "How long have you been doing this job?" 300 years. 300 years of breaking people. She leaned back in her chair. "Do you enjoy it?" The question hit Melis like a blade. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. He started. By the end of 6 hours, Melis had told Yuna about his childhood, about the dreams he had given up, about the loneliness of his position, about how no one ever asked him how he felt. He left the session and submitted a report that said, "The human cannot be broken. She may have broken me instead." The reports reached Emperor Kalos daily. Each one was more baffling than the last. The humans could not be defeated through darkness. They made their own light. They could not be defeated through silence. They filled it with songs and stories. They could not be defeated through fear. They laughed at it, joked about it, turned it into something small and manageable. High Commander Revan stood before the Emperor, frustration in his voice. "They're insane," he said. "There's no other explanation. Their minds must be damaged." Emperor Kalos sat on his throne, thinking. His 6 eyes stared at nothing. "No," he said finally. "They're not insane. Then what are they?" The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. In his endless life he had seen countless species. Some were brave. Some were cunning. Some were powerful. But all of them eventually broke. All of them eventually learned to fear these humans were different. They felt fear. He could see it in their eyes, smell it on their skin. But they did not let fear control them. They acknowledged it, accepted it, and then set it aside like an old coat. "They're free," the Emperor said. Revan frowned. "Free? They're in our cells. Their bodies are in cells. But their spirits?" Kalos shook his head slowly. "Their spirits are somewhere we cannot reach." That night, for the first time in centuries, Emperor Kalos did not sleep. He lay in his chambers, listening to the silence of his palace, and thought about a species that sang in the darkness. He thought about freedom, and he wondered, in a small corner of his ancient heart, what it would feel like to laugh. The Velen Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had crushed 1,000 species under their boots. And in all that time, no one had ever dared to laugh at Emperor Kalos. The Emperor sat on his throne made of black metal and stolen starlight. He was massive. His skin was like dark stone, rough and cold. 6 eyes burned red on his face, and when he spoke, his voice shook the walls. Around him stood his court generals, advisors, nobles, all silent, all afraid. Fear was the only language the Empire understood. High Commander Revan stood at the Emperor's right hand. He had won 40 wars. He had burned planets. He had watched civilizations beg for mercy. Nothing surprised him anymore, until today, the sensors had found a small ship floating near the border of Imperial space. It was ugly. It was slow. It looked like someone had built it from spare parts and hope. Revan had sent a warship to capture it, expecting easy prey. Now the prisoners stood in the throne room, and Revan did not know what to think. There were 5 of them. Soft creatures. No scales, no claws, no armor. They looked weak, breakable, like they might die if you pushed them too hard. The Empire's records called them humans. From a small blue planet called Earth, the first human stepped forward. He was middle-aged, with gray at his temples and tired lines around his eyes. But he was smiling. Actually smiling. His name was Taiho Park, and he was their ambassador. Behind him stood Captain Yuna Kong. She had a scar running down her jaw, and her eyes moved constantly, watching everything. She stood like a soldier, but she did not look afraid. Dr. Minho Beek was holding some kind of tablet, tapping at it with his fingers. He seemed more interested in the architecture of the throne room than the Emperor himself. Lieutenant Sora had not stopped grinning since she arrived. She looked around the throne room like a child at a festival, Eyes wide with wonder, and Sergeant Doan Choi stood at the back, arms crossed. He was looking at the guards' weapons with the expression of a man comparing prices at a market. Emperor Kalos leaned forward. His 6 eyes focused on Taiho. "You have entered the space of the Valen Empire," the Emperor said. His voice was thunder. "You will kneel. You will submit. Your world now belongs to us." The throne room was silent. 1,000 courtiers held their breath. This was the moment every species faced, the moment they realized they were nothing, that resistance was death, that the only path was surrender. Taiho looked at the Emperor. He looked at the massive throne, the burning eyes, the claws that could tear through metal. He looked at his team, and then he laughed. It was not a nervous laugh. It was not a fearful laugh. It was genuine, a warm, human sound that bounced off the cold walls and filled the silent room. Taiho bent over, one hand on his knee, laughing like he had just heard the funniest joke in the universe. The court froze. Guards raised their weapons. Advisors went pale. In 10,000 years, no one had ever made such a sound in this room. Revan's hand went to his blade. "You dare, I'm sorry," Taiho said, still chuckling. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I'm sorry. It's just, you're so serious. All of you. Standing there with your big, scary throne and your burning eyes and your submit or die speech." He took a breath, trying to control himself. "Do you practice that in front of a mirror? Because it's really good. Very dramatic." The Emperor did not move. Could not move. In all his endless years, he had never experienced this. Rage, yes, defiance, sometimes, but this casual dismissal of his power. "You do not fear death?" Kilos asked. Taiho shrugged. "I mean, I'd prefer to avoid it." "But fear?" He glanced back at his team. Yuna was watching the guards with professional interest. Minho was still tapping at his tablet. Sora waved at a nearby noble, who flinched like she had thrown acid at him. Doan yawned. "We're human," Taiho said, turning back to the Emperor. "We're always afraid of something. But we're also really, really tired. We flew a very long way in a very small ship. The food was terrible." Sora played the same song 47 times. "So honestly, a giant alien threatening to destroy our planet is maybe the 3rd most stressful thing that happened this week." Sora spoke up. "It's a good song. It's really not," Doan said. "Children, please," Yuna said, though her eyes never left the guards. Emperor Kalos sat back. His claws tightened on the arms of his throne. He had conquered civilizations that spanned star systems. He had broken the minds of creatures that lived for millennia. But these soft, small, ridiculous beings stood in his throne room and bickered about music. "You are either very brave," the Emperor said slowly, "or very foolish." Taiho smiled. It was a kind smile, warm and genuine. "Your Majesty, we're human." "We're usually both," the court murmured. This was wrong. This was not how first contact worked. Species were supposed to cower. They were supposed to beg. They were not supposed to smile and make jokes and treat the Emperor like an old friend. Revan stepped forward. "Enough. Take them to the cells. We will break them there." The guards moved in. The humans did not resist. But as they were led away, Taiho called back over his shoulder. "Hey, Emperor. Nice throne room. Very intimidating. But you should really consider some plants. Maybe a fountain. It's very gloomy in here." The doors closed behind them. Emperor Kilos sat alone with his thoughts. Around him, the court whispered. Something had shifted. Something small but significant, for the first time in 10,000 years. The Emperor did not know what to do next. And somewhere deep in his ancient chest, in a place he had forgotten existed, something stirred. It felt almost like curiosity. The throne room had never been so quiet. 1,000 courtiers stood frozen. Generals who had conquered galaxies held their breath. High Commander Revan's hand had fallen away from his weapon. No one moved. No one spoke. Emperor Kilos the Eternal rose from his throne. In 10,000 years he had never done this. The throne was his place. The height was his power. To step down was to become equal, and emperors were never equal. But today, Kilos walked down the steps. The 5 humans stood together in the center of the room. They were tired. Sora's voice was hoarse from singing. Minho had dirt on his clothes from the arena. Yuna's eyes were still red. Doan had lost his shirt somewhere. And Tejo stood at the front, watching the Emperor approach with the same calm smile he'd worn since the beginning. Kelos stopped before them. Standing on the floor, he was the same height as Taiho, eye to eye. Equal. "You have won," the Emperor said. His voice echoed through the silent room. "Name your terms." The court waited. This was the moment. When a species defeated the Empire, they demanded things. Territory, technology, weapons, revenge. The humans could ask for anything: fleets of warships, planets full of resources, the heads of their captors. Taiho smiled. Alliance. The word hung in the air. Revan made a choking sound. The Kyodias murmured in confusion. Alliance? The Emperor repeated. Equal partnership. You have 10,000 years of history. You've seen things we can't imagine. You have technology that makes our ships look like toys. Taiho shrugged. We have stubborn optimism and really good snacks. I think we'd make a good team. The Emperor stared at him. His 6 eyes searched Taiho's face for tricks, for hidden meanings. For the trap that must be waiting, he found nothing but honesty. You could demand anything, Kalos said slowly. We threatened your world with destruction. We imprisoned you. We put your people through trials that have killed thousands. Yeah, Yuna said, stepping forward. But you didn't actually destroy anything. And honestly, she looked at the massive alien with something like sympathy. You seem lonely. The word hit the Emperor like a physical blow. Lonely. In 10,000 years, no one had ever called him that. No one had ever looked past the power and the fear and the endless conquest to see the being underneath. To see the weight he carried. The silence of his nights. The emptiness of his victories. These humans had been his prisoners for less than a week. And they saw him more clearly than his own court ever had. Kilo stood motionless. The court held its breath, and then something happened that changed the galaxy forever. Emperor Kalos laughed. It was not a smooth sound. It was rusty, rough, unpracticed, the laugh of someone who had forgotten how. It started small, just a rumble in his chest. Then it grew, spilling out of him like water from a broken dam. The court erupted in chaos. Some nobles fled, convinced the Emperor had gone mad. Some guards raised their weapons, unsure who to point them at. Some courtiers fainted. And a few scattered through the crowd started laughing too. They didn't know why. They just knew that something had broken and something new was being born. Revan stood frozen. He had served the Emperor for 300 years. He had never seen Kalos show any emotion except cold anger. Now his Emperor was laughing like a child, tears streaming from his 6 eyes, his massive shoulders shaking. You, Kalos gasped, pointing at Taiho. You are insane. Probably, Taiho agreed. Your species is ridiculous. Definitely. You walked into my throne room and laughed at me. You sang in my prisons. You confused my interrogators. You defeated trials that have killed thousands, and now you're offering me friendship? Yes, the Emperor's laughter slowly faded. He wiped his eyes with a clawed hand. His face was different now, softer somehow, as if a mask had fallen away. Why? He asked. After everything, why would you want peace with us? Taiho was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. Because the universe is very big and very cold, he said. And everyone is scared. Everyone is lonely. Everyone is just trying to survive. He looked up at the Emperor. We could fight. We could hate each other. We could spend the next 1,000 years destroying each other. Or we could choose something different. Something different, Kilos repeated. Hope, Sora said. Joy, connection, the good stuff. We're not saying it'll be easy, Minho added. Your species tried to kill us. Our species is very annoying. It'll take time. But it's worth trying, Doan said. Better than the alternative. The Emperor looked at them, 5 small, fragile creatures who had walked into his empire and refused to be afraid, who had faced death and darkness and chosen to laugh, who had won their freedom and asked only for friendship. "Very well," he said at last. "Alliance." The word changed everything. In the years that followed, the Velen Empire transformed. Slowly at first, then faster. Laughter returned to corridors that had known only silence. Fear gave way to curiosity. Conquest gave way to connection. It wasn't easy. Old habits died hard. There were setbacks, failures, moments when the old darkness threatened to return. But the humans were stubborn. They kept showing up. They kept making jokes. They kept believing. Ambassador Taiho Park became the first human on the Imperial Council. Captain Unikong trained a new generation of Velen officers. Dr. Minho Beek discovered cures for diseases that had plagued 100 worlds. Lieutenant Sora Im started a cultural exchange program that spread Earth music across the galaxy. And Sergeant Doan Choi opened a gym that became surprisingly popular. Every year, on the anniversary of First Contact, Emperor Kalos invited the 5 humans to dinner. They sat together, old friends now, and shared stories and food and laughter. The Emperor always paid, and somewhere in the endless dark of space, a simple truth echoed from star to star: the universe is terrifying. Laugh anyway.